this series. We've been saying how Dynasty needed to prove themselves. They needed to get these points on the board. They've just qualified for finals, so that's a bonus 2 points going to be going into their pockets. But let's talk about SK first, because they've been an hour or so since they were on this stream. So let's bring up their topic, because we've just been talking about early aggression for the likes of Dynasty. That's something we've been talking about a lot for SK as well recently.
Yeah, we have been talking about it, and the reason why for SK they play aggressive, because Hegman and Tyrus are very confident players, and they're not afraid to duel and play aggressive and fight back against whoever is invading. So that's the biggest difference for me between SK and G2. G2 have a weak duo in the jungle, a weaker at least, and that's why Dynasty were able to abuse it. SK can fight back.
Yeah, and we heard Mowgli saying that they made that change in the jungle because they were tired of just getting demolished in the jungle, and that's what Tyrus and Hegman have been doing to other teams, just demolishing them in the jungle. So it's this is exactly why the change was made on the side of Dynasty, is specifically because of teams like SK. So this is going to be the real test.
It definitely will be. I want to take a look at the roster for Dynasty as well coming on into this one. Obviously, we just saw them do an incredible job in their semifinals against G2. Mowgli, PT Lam, and Riku Meza. Riku Meza definitely going to be one of the major focuses coming on into this game, but honestly, all three of them played exceptionally in their semifinal.
Another thing to note is that, like you said, Riku Meza is playing exceptionally, but he's playing over-aggressive at times, and he's giving kills and advantages away to the enemy team. He did that against G2. SK is a team that if you give an advantage away, they're going to take that and capitalize very well. So Riku Meza is going to need to play a little bit more careful, play around your team, and try to coordinate and communicate better.
Yeah, and that's actually really nicely leads into my next point of the player to watch, who for this one it's got to be Hegman coming on in. He's the fresh new shot caller for SK Gaming. Everything's been going wonderfully now that he's at the helm of the early game, but against this new Dynasty that wants to be aggressive, wants to push that early game, we need to see perfect shot calling coming out from Hegman, and being able to work with Tyrus, as you were mentioning, as a duo to make sure that they can match up to Riku Meza.
Yeah, it's going to be very crucial, that early game pressure. Both teams going to be looking to put that pressure on. Both teams going to be looking to win that jungle matchup and snowball that lead into the lane. So this is going to be so entertaining because of this clash of styles, both of them playing very similarly, and it's just going to be who executes and who performs just that little bit better.
It's going to be exciting to see how this one is going to pan out. It's about time we started to talk about the draft coming on into this game. Now, we've already talked about these jungle picks being very heavily kind of melee jungle picks. We've seen the Ryan, we've seen the Crawl. What is the expectation? Is SK just going to completely draft around those picks?
I mean, probably. Like, this is a situation where if you just saw the side of Dynasty have such dominance with the Arden and the Kroll, like, take them off of that. Get them away from it. It's a similar thing we see in, best of threes and best of fives, where if you get destroyed by a pick, you take it away for the next game so that it doesn't beat you again. You just saw them perform so well with it. Take it away. See if they have other tricks up their sleeve, if they can run that same style with multiple compositions.
Honestly, though, at the same time, what's developing for Dynasty is that they're creating too many picks that need to be taken away from them. The Cruel is going to be probably the most contested pick just because Tyrus plays it really well and plays it to great extent. So the Cruel is a contested pick, the Rhyme, and then in lane, the Kestrel and Celeste are two heroes that apparently you have to take away from PT Lam. And of course, we can't forget about the Sky Weapon Power either.
Yeah, and also, I mean, let's talk about the Arden as well for Mowgli, that was incredibly effective in that game. Incredible double gauntlets that was setting his team up for this success that they've been having. It feels like just about every pick in the current meta is a comfort pick right now for Dynasty, which is not something that we were expecting to come into the finals saying. Honestly, like, I have to just be honest with you guys. I wasn't expecting Dynasty to make it to the finals. And then coming into their G2 series, they dismantled that team. This is not the Dynasty I was expecting to see this morning. And I cannot wait to see how they are going to match up to SK Gaming, because honestly, if they have a performance like they've had in the semifinals, SK have to be worried about this.
They really have to be worried, and they have to be very careful too.
Well, when it comes to the focusing a player, I feel like, you mentioned there's too many picks to focus them. I just think you don't worry about PT Lam. PT Lam's going to have something he's comfortable on no matter what. Like, you just can't focus that away. I do think the fact that Kroll and Arden were the two constants in that series, you take those away. And SK, they do exactly that by taking the Arden off the board, just challenging Dynasty, saying, okay, you ran this to sort of protect the carry composition. can you protect the carry if you don't have those same protectors? Celeste first picked, Black Feather, the counter, immediately picked up. I think SK, as of right now, has the advantage.
And that Black Feather is probably going to be going to Kovalifar. We said that he plays CP Idris very well, he plays Black Feather very well. He's shown them before, very confident on them. The only thing is, Dynasty, they picked Celeste, they must have known that Black Feather would come out, especially since Arden is no longer available for them. I think that's going to be actually... is going to hurt them because they don't have too many heroes left that have the same protection and the same mobility. Finn has the protection but doesn't have the mobility, and other heroes have the mobility but not the protection. Arden works perfectly for Dynasty, and now it's away. The last comes out for SK, and that's one of Hegman's best heroes.
Catherine's available though. We could see that old school triple CC composition where you just lock someone in place with the Catherine, the Celeste, and then something like a Crawl to round that out. We could have a near perfect composition for Dynasty here.
The thing is, it's very difficult to do that when there's a Black Feather Lance on the other side, because not only is the Lance just crowd control that you have to worry about that can interrupt your CC train, but Black Feather Rose offensive, if he avoids one of those stuns, he's going to avoid almost all of them just because of the way this composition is going to work. They are going to grab that Krull, and I would not be surprised if it's Catherine, but they could also go for the Lyra if they want that sustain, which could be very important, except Lyra was banned because I wasn't paying attention to the second ban phase because I was more focused on the Black Feather Celeste. But, you know, they could, the Catherine I think would make a lot of sense here just because you don't want to go for the Finn because of the situation where you end up not being able to necessarily protect both of your carries. And the Catherine can be up on that front line with the Krull as well.
Catherine would be the best thing unless they go for a Finn and try to go for a later game composition. Ooh. They go for the Adagio. So what Adagio does, it brings a lot of early game aggression because it has a lot of poke, a lot of dueling potential. Even though the heal is not as significant as it used to be before, the damage coming from his auto attacks is still very significant. And Dynasty have been playing very aggressive to allow PT Lamb to scale. This is perfect because now Cruel can go in, and honestly Cruel Adagio can 2v3 teams if they're played correctly. It's an extremely strong duo.
Yeah, the Adagio makes Krull now much more of a threat than he previously was. Obviously, he still was a threat before, but now if you have those empowered basic attacks coming out from the Krull as well, you can start melting through opponents.
SK could pick Petal here, which would work perfectly, just because it counters Cruel and Adagio in the jungle, and later on when they're going to be diving on Celeste, the Petal ultimate, the combustion coming out, it both deals damage to Celeste and heals Black Feather, who's going to be on top of her. It's a composition that SK have used before, and it's worked well. The only thing is, Celeste has a lot of AoE damage, and there's a lot of AoE. I actually expect Dynasty to take this one if they play the aggression correctly.
I'm going to ask you for your favorite as well coming into this one, Bacon, because it feels like both teams have a very strong composition individually.
I think SK take this one because early game, Petal's going to counter the Krull. Late game, Black Feather's going to destroy the Celeste. I don't think people really understand just how hard of a counter this is once you get into the late game.
All right, well, we'll see if they can get to the late game and make that one happen. I'm curious to see how this one is going to pan out. It's time, though, to jump into our grand finals. Let us know who you're supporting. Hashtag Vainglory8 on Twitter. Is SK the favorite going to take this one, or are Dynasty going to be the new usurpers? Can they win themselves a week of the Vainglory8? It's time to pass it over to our casters and find out as we kick off our grand finals.
What a great finals we have in front of us, Scoundrel. SK versus Dynasty, and Dynasty, the new challengers to the European beasts here in summer. Here in autumn, as it is now cold and Halloweeny.
Halloweeny? Have we got to the Halloweeny stage yet, Darcy?
It's feel October. Like that's like... It's October.
I don't know. I just feel like Halloween doesn't come out really until like post 25th of October.
Man, we got the spooky Petal skin. So clearly, Scoundrel, it's time to get spooked here on the Halcyon Fold.
Clearly, I am not in the festive spirit quickly enough. OG combo coming out with Dynasty Gaming, by the way. The Adagio combo is something that has been tried, tested, and true in a lot of scenarios. You just, apply Gift of Fire with Cruel, and then you give him the Agent of Wrath, and suddenly you start chunking people down in that mid game. A little bit of sustain for PT Lamb in the late game as well, and we've seen how PT Lamb has been performing today. He has been on fire. There is that direct counter, in quotation marks, of the weapon power Blackfeather, and it is Kavalafar piloting it, so it's one of his favourite picks in this particular situation. So Kavalafar on a comfort pick for him, which is obviously always a good thing, guys.
Not to mention the interaction between Petal and melee heroes that makes it very difficult in 2.8 for a melee hero to actually auto-attack the Petal if her minions are standing underneath her. And so something
I like how
that
you framed
Rikimeza
that
going to have to
interaction.
be... Well, it is an interaction. And, you know, it is something that Rikimeza is going to have to be aware of heading into teamfights.
Yeah, it certainly can prove sometimes a small issue, but we'll cross that bridge if we ever come to it. Tyra's 3 crystal bits in tow, and again, something else that I think is often understated is how impactful those spontaneous combustions post level 6 with Frostburn in facilitating the dive potential of Kavalafar, in facilitating Hegman, who, by the way, has incredibly good lands in his ability to lock down that Celeste as well.
So, Dynasty will have to be very careful how they play the early game. Look at this, SK rotating around the backs of the jungle. Dynasty are moving down whilst Rikimeza looks to try and steal the backs of his own. SK are looking for a fight here, and PTLM has been locked up, but Rikimeza is putting the pressure onto Kavalafar. Kavalafar almost loses his life, sitting on just under 20 HP. Tyra is now in trouble. Rikimeza able to get on top of the Petal, but now it's turned, and first blood will go to Tyra's.
And there is the Petal versus Cruel matchup. It can be very difficult for the Cruel, who wants to sit on top of the Petal where possible. Petal able to kite back so nicely. Brilliant Githian walls from Hegman, by the way. Something that shouldn't be understated. Life-saving Githian wall to keep Kavalafar alive. And then again, impales in Githian walls to allow Taris to kite back and let the Munions do the work against Rikimeza. Difficult to weakness stack the Munions when they are 3 of them chomping away at you in the early game. Rikimeza already on the back foot here, working towards what I imagine is going to be a tension bow first item, so just trying to go for that burst damage in combination, I think, with the Gift of Fire and Agent of Wrath.
Very good start for SK here. Like you mentioned, it's very nice to see Adagio picked up here on the Halcyon Fold. I know there's still many people who believe that Adagio has a place in competitive
Just
Vainglory.
Subtly name-dropping physics here.
You're the one name-dropping people, Scoundrel. I'm being very, very open with my statements, you will find. Dynasty, though, look at PT Lamb under the turret, just taken down by Minions! Tyra's on this Petal, providing a lot of threat with the heavy Prism, Eclipse Prism, and then double Crystal Bit. It's so much Crystal power augmented for Tyra's in this early game.
Wondering whether he's going to go towards the Shatterglass instead of the Frostburn again. This is something that North American Petals have been doing quite a lot. They just go towards the flat burst damage. You get a huge burst coming out from the spontaneous combustion. Obviously, your Munions get tankier, which is always very good against the Celeste. And they also hit a little bit harder because they have that Shatterglass behind them. So I wonder whether Tyra's, given that he has got the gold for combination, and maybe they are just looking for the outright damage in the mid-game versus the Cruel and putting pressure onto the Celeste, we'll see him go for a Shatterglass. We'll have to see. Once he completes this rotation, we'll have a bit of a better idea where he chooses to spend his gold.
I'm saying Frostburn because he's heading to the shop and doesn't have gold for Shatterglass. So there it is. It is going to be a Frostburn coming out, which makes a lot of sense. You can slow down the Cruel. You can stop him from being a threat with this Adagio Gift of Fire. Now, SK are going to continue the pressure that they've put onto Rikimeza. In the series between G2 and Dynasty, it was Rikimeza diving into the jungle and stealing away, but Tyra's is doing just that to Rikimeza. And I have to say, when you look at the hero pools of Rikimeza and Tyra's, they're very similar players and what they like to pick up for their team. And so it's very interesting seeing this direct jungle matchup between Tyra's and Rikimeza just for that one reason.
I mean, I've not seen Tyra's first prime, but you know, maybe one day. No, I'm even joking. But I like the Frostburn on Tyra's here. I think it's a pretty solid pickup. It facilitates Hegman. It facilitates Kavalafar. Look at this super early Crystal Sentry take. They're going to proc the Healing Flask as actually PT Lamb heads towards the backs of the SK Gaming lineup and just going to be able to steal those away, then head back to his own base afterwards. A bit of a clever rotation. He's not going to get caught out because he saw that Hegman and Tyra's were heading back slowly through that forward side jungle. And after that, he'll get a bit of extra gold in the back pocket, pick up an infusion at level 7. Probably not going to proc that until at least level 8. got the workings of an Eve of Harvest here too.
Mowgli's just caught out here. Great Giffian War once more, and Impale from Hegman, who on this lance is just setting up so many opportunities for the side of SK. 3 kills for them. Now they're looking for this gold miner at 6.5 minutes. It won't be contested, I don't believe, unless Peter Lamb wants to throw a Solar Storm across the wall. Is a little bit slow with this petal. And SK going to have to respect the fact that this turret is under siege as well. So Tyra is going to do this all by himself, and Hegman can come down to help with a single Impale. Here's the Solar Storm, but it wasn't in range for the kill. It wasn't quite there. And so SK able to secure that gold payout.
SK very happy. You can see one of the major things about Petal, that we always talk about the way that Petal interacts with other heroes, is that if you are the Petal and you're chasing someone down, especially if you have Frostburn, if they are unable to turn and put pressure on you, that's the perfect and ideal situation for a Petal to be in. Using those minions, chasing down the target, and obviously then using Trampoline offensively where needed, or Trampoline to reposition. If you are putting pressure on the Petal directly and forcing her into a defensive position, that's where Petal is put on the back foot a bit more. And you can see all of this game, Tyra is dictating the pace of these plays because Hegman sets it up and then the minions just come out.
Going to be Hell's Heart from Rikameza, not finding a target at all. The Verse of Judgment did stun Hegman, but fairly unimpactful. And now SK looking for a re-engage. PT Lamb rooted up. 3-man Giffian War. Tyra's with a spontaneous combustion, and oh dear, Rikameza blowing up as we speak. The fountain's there for Mowgli, and he's got to pop it preemptively, knowing that both his carries are low, and it's going to do a good amount of healing, get them up to full. Hegman this time missing his Impale, but isn't punished. Able to sidestep that core collapse, and now SK without a minion wave may just look to rotate somewhere else. Lam with those Helogenesis can do a lot of damage to the melee frontline that SK has.
We are now in the stage of the game, post level 8 Celeste, where she is going to start to seek those range advantages over the likes of Kabalafa and Tyra's. Tyra's actually trying to be aggressive here, but one of the things that Petal has always struggled with, and about why Petal seen less and less play in certain scenarios, is that the CP Petal is very vulnerable to these long range mages because they just absolutely destroy the minions from range. Ooh, they outrange her in terms of damage output. Ooh.
This is a fountain.
Yeah. That's
one thing, Scoundrel, that is a little bit difficult, but like you mentioned, perhaps is kind of not too relevant, is that Helogenesis turned Supernova will clear out the Petal's minions, but it's a little bit difficult to aim it, and I'm not sure if you want to commit that much time on a Celeste clearing it out, but like you mentioned, the range advantage that Celeste has over Petal does keep Tyra's at bay, and whilst Black Feather's very good into a Celeste, not Rhyme. I just have it on my brain because it's Rikameza. The Cruel is very good at negating the damage output that the Black Feather has. So, in theory, Dynasty have a lot of protective abilities in teamfights to set up with it. It really just depends on how far they let SK get in the lead.
Yeah, they actually are, like we said, at the stage of the game now where if they can try and maintain range, Rikameza.
Will he be okay? No, not at all.
No, he won't. No, he won't. He certainly isn't.
It's going to be Sentry taken as well by SK. They've taken 2 already, and now Mowgli's in threat. He's in a bit of trouble. Hegman's dealing with PT Lamb on the side. Perhaps a little bit of mismatch in the shot calling. That's going to be a great Verse of Judgment. Solar Storm will hit 2, but the Fountain and Reflex blocks take the damage for them. Now SK will be moving around the map. PT Lamb is actually very low in energy, but we'll pop his healing flask to get some more back.
One of the stages of the game now where I think SK have got to be a bit more picky about where they choose to start their engages. PT Lamb has been the standout carry for Dynasty. There's the engage.
And Balafar in trouble here. Does get bursted down. Rikameza now going to be the prime target of SK as the fight continues, but PT Lamb takes down the Black Feather. Tyra's will fall as well. It's a double for PT Lamb. And Hegman, last man standing, will make it back to the turret. The energy is still an issue for PT Lamb, who has an Eve of Harvest and a Crystal Infusion in his back pocket. May mean that the turret will be slow to take for Dynasty, but they're going to start it up nonetheless. One more Helogenesis Supernova combination could take the turret down. Is going to be started up here. Hegman doing his best to keep this wave off of it. Not going to ever crash into the turret, and the turret will survive as well.
The aggressive maneuvers from Hegman. They baited out Kavalafar returning to the lane, maybe quicker than they anticipated. But you are starting to see SK actually took the fight without any of their support items in tow, by the way. They didn't have Crucible up, they didn't have Fountain up, as Mowgli blocks out an Impale, but a great Githian wall.
Rickamez is in trouble. Fountain isn't there. 18 seconds left on cooldown, and Rickamez will fall. This should be the turret falling as well. SK just come on, auto attacks will get it. Tyrus does go forward. Frostburn slowing PT Lamb. A Solar Storm will fly out, but it only hits Hegman. PT Lamb now trying to put the pressure back onto Kavalafar, but have to be careful. Tyrus is behind them and Hegman is to the side of them. Means there's a lot of collapse available, and they do collapse on in. First of Judgment will go out. 1-for-1 trade as PT Lamb picks up Tyrus. Now here comes Rickameza up the lane and SK to retreat.
Iris has actually gone for the Frostbite into Shatterglass here, not expecting PT Lamb to pick up any early shielding, so just says I want this flat amount of burst damage available, as well as keeping my Munions as tanky as possible as well. Like that idea from him. But you are starting to see SK lose a bit of that dominance that they had in the early game, Dowsey, and it is now because engages are harder for them to seek. PT Lamb, 3 items on this Celeste. Like you said, slightly running out of energy from time to time, but the range advantage that he has over Tyrus and Kavalafar, it means that SK, if they don't find that footing immediately, they're going to get punished by the onslaught of the Heliogenesis from that massive range that the Celeste has at this point in the game. So it's up to Hegman, and that's why I find it interesting that Hegman hasn't prioritized something like War Treads, where I feel like the engage potential and the movement speed of a War Treads might be necessary to basically run in and dive onto PT Lamb. One other thing that I think they're going to have to cope with is obviously correct use of Crucible. You might sometimes want to Crucible out the Cruel Ultimate or Crucible out a Core Collapse, but you really have to wait and save it for Mowgli's Verse of Judgment in almost every case, because if you dive in and then get caught in Mowgli's Verse of Judgment without a Crucible, it's basically going to be free peel for PT Lamb, and it's going to stop you in your tracks.
One of the things that is a little bit underrated about Clockwork Scoundrel is the fact that it provides so much energy regen when you have both that and Eve of Harvest. So with PT Lamb going Broken Myth, is lacking a little bit on that. Dynasty do decide to trade Turret for Gold Miner. They should have been known, well aware that it was happening, but decided that map objective was good enough for them. Mowgli does get impaled, knock up against the wall. There's an Echo, and he's going to get knocked again. Verse of Judgment cancelled, but a great Hell's Heart onto Kavalafar stops the fight. PT Lamb stacking his Broken Myth just a little bit, up to 4, looking for more. Tyrus, that's a bit of damage over the wall. That's going to be Rickamez going in. Core Collapse blocked up. A Solar Storm hits Kavalafar in the face, and Kavalafar takes so much damage in the process. There's no Fountain available from Hegman to heal him up. So SK will walk backwards, knowing that the Fountain from Mowgli is ready to go. Able to secure the Treant over the wall as well. PT Lamb taking it all. Now he has the goal to go finish a Clockwork.
Goodness me, Dowsey, this has been a very solid defense here from Dynasty Gaming. PT Lamb pretty close to finishing up that Clockwork from this point forward, and that will be this, you know, the spam of the Heliogenesis. There, the Clockwork comes through. Light armor coming through to defend against Kavalafar as well, but now you're going to see onslaught of long-range, quick-paced, minefield-like Heliogenesis filling up the field, and it's going to make SK's life a living hell. They're going to have to search for flank plays. They're going to have to search for engages with Hegman, trying to utilize their vision control that they have of this Kraken area. Maybe this Kraken bait is what SK needs.
I love... Well, I'll talk about it in a second. PT Lamb in trouble, but a great stun once more. PT Lamb rooted up. Great heal from the Eve of Harvest. Will it be enough? No! Complete annihilation from Kavalafar on this Black Feather. And now he's looking to take down Rickameza, who is very tanky. Doesn't have any damage output. Goes on to Tyrus looking for a kill, but he will get finished off by Kavalafar. He's now looking for his double, make it a triple if he finds it. And it looks like it shall go over to Hegman instead. An ace will come through for SK. At the 1540, they can look to take the Kraken. And I was going to say, Scoundrel, I really like Rickameza prioritization onto defense for PT Lamb. However, there is a lack of reflex block, like you mentioned, on PT Lamb, and that's proving to be troublesome against Hegman.
Yeah, again, there's a lot of things that he has to consider. Blocking, you want to make sure that he's blocking getting walls, impales, sometimes maybe even be able to block the slow coming out from on point is something that's been sort of proving an issue for Celestes as well, because slowing them down makes them that much easier of a target for Cavalifar. I think, you know, the opposite of cast a curse, cast a blessing. Well, just as we say that SK need to find a flank play, they find a flank play, and that's what opened up that Kraken for them. That's the opening that they needed to now start to push an advantage. It's going to be harder to flank when you have just a singular lane to work with here, though, so this will be the risky time. Often, you know, when you score a goal in football and people say, you hear the commentators say, well, the riskiest time for a counter goal is just after you've scored a goal. That's how I feel Kraken is in Vainglory. The riskiest time for you to fight is often when you've got Kraken, and they're actually going to search for it here.
They are looking for the fight here. Great double stun onto PT Lamb, onto Mowgli. Mowgli pops out the Versa Judgment, but PT Lamb is in trouble. Solar Storm will heal him. The Evil Harvest Heal is huge, and that's enough to take down the Black Feather here. The prediction game is true, Scoundrel. And I think it's the wide open space that is the base that makes the fight so difficult to be had. I've been thinking about it a lot recently in my spare time, about Vainglory and things like that, Scoundrel.
I just like to think about the base of Vainglory in my spare time.
I do, because look how big it is. It's so big, and it's the most wide open area that you can fight in, which means that flank plays happen far too often.
That sentence again.
It is so big, Scoundrel. So big.
Okay, it's a very big base.
It is.
I feel like I baited you into something completely unnecessary. Anyway, I think also you have to be aware of the fact that one of the main strengths for SK happens to be that ability to utilize vision control, to look for a flank onto PT Lamb, to take advantage of the fact that he doesn't have that reflex block. But in that scenario there's no surprises that can be had for SK. You just have to run full force at them. And even when they ran full force at them, got an Echo Githian wall stun onto PT Lamb, he still survived. Somehow, because of the Solar Storm. I think he built up the Broken Mistax, and that Solar Storm just heals for a chunk if you get it across multiple targets and hit every single projectile. So worries for SK, you know, Dynasty, how many times can you catch them out in the flank? Or how many times... Whoa.
How many times can you catch out Cavalifar with the Hell's Heart is the question. The hero with the most CC immunity gets hit once more. SK are in trouble, Scoundrel. Dynasty with a Solar Storm will find Tyrus, and now it's Cavalifar the main target as Rikomeza charges forward. PT Lamb trying to slow, finding those Frostburn Helogenesis, but War Treads should survive. Purchased immediately there by Hegman to get them out of harm's way. And Dynasty, the unlikely competitors, are bringing it towards SK. They were always my dark horse of a team, Scoundrel, with just such great players and mechanical skill and knowledge and theory crafting. They've really struggled to find themselves and come together. It's been a couple of seasons of disappointing results, I think, for the team. But maybe this is the start of something new.
I think SK have to realize that there is now the point in the game where several times they've tried to run headlong into Dynasty Gaming and they've ended up coming on the worst end of the team fight. You can't do that. You have to be sneaky. You have to try and find a sneaky Lance role play or find Cavalifar a flank on PT Lamb, and that's exactly what Cavalifar is looking for right now.
Trying to get onto him, but another stun. Rikomeza doesn't miss. Cavalifar's block does. PT Lamb will be threatened here. Hegman looking to try and get in, but a great Solar Storm picks up Tyrus. There's the core collapse onto K-Val. Versa Judgment will go down and stuns up Hegman as Rikomeza finishes the Cavalifar Black Feather. It's shut down and an ace comes through for Dynasty. The Kraken's ready to be taken.
And this is the comeback Dynasty mounting. Unbelievable. Rikomeza has been pinpoint with these ultimates. You just cannot get hit by those if you're Cavalifar and you're literally sitting on top of your target. If you get stopped for even an instant as a weapon power Blackfeather when trying to take out the likes of Celeste, you're going to get shut down. And that's what's been happening in these last few fights. You're seeing the weaknesses of a Petal as well as she falls off towards the later ends of the game. You're seeing the strength of the Celeste into the Petal, especially once Celeste is at this point with those 4 CP items to back her. And, you know, SK had massive mid-game advantages. Got to a point, though, where they just weren't able to consistently hammer their head against the door, because that door is now metal, and they need to find a unique way to open it. in some of the fights that they've won is where Kavalafar has found that flank and Hegman has actually landed an Impale and they've got Chain CC locked onto PT Lamb. If any of those individual facets don't hit, you're just going to lose the fight as SK.
Death Bush has been set up by SK. Blares are being laid down by Mowgli. He splits up the team as they come on through, and Impale will miss. A core collapse connects, and Rickamezo's hiding. Kavalafar's charging.
Where's Kavalafar going?
Doesn't hit. No, it stuns nevertheless. It's a full stun. Oh dear, this Black Clover is just dead. There's no way he escapes, surely. Maybe I spoke too soon. He does go down, but they've taken out PT Lamb. Rickameza now will charge on in. It's the Petal. Cruel matchup. He's trying his best. Tyra's trying to avoid it. Gets impaled. Rickameza in a bit of trouble, but he will continue. He's forced and he will take down his arch nemesis of a Petal. Only Hegman remains, and may I remind you that the Kraken is on the Vein Crystal turret, securing one already. Hegman rolling his way home. Rickameza is charging on forward to join this Kraken as she slowly takes the base. It's 13 seconds till Kavalafar respawns. Make it 5 seconds roughly as the Kraken will... Maybe not. I thought it would take it much quicker. She's a slow beast, this one. But there it is. K-Val's up. Now it's Rickameza's job to try and do as much damage to this Vein Crystal with the help of the Kraken. And look at the heals that come through. It is easy peasy lemon squeezy. Another stun for show. And Dynasty will take game 1 against SK in the finals.
Really well played from Dynasty. SK got great early to mid-game advantages, but as we have seen from teams time and time again in Europe, they just struggle to know how to close it out. Dynasty take the first in what is definitely an upset for them. We're going to go into the next game with bated breath because this could be a surprise winner of this week, Dalsy.
We'll have to find out as this series develops. Exciting times for Dynasty. Let's hear from Munchables and his gang on this game.
Oh, we might have an upset on our hands, ladies and gentlemen. Dynasty coming back into things. 11-10 final score. We talked about SK having to be aggressive on the Petal. They were in the early game, but the later in the game it got, the more and more Dynasty managed to pull themselves into things.
Yeah, and this is a game that SK should have won. Let's be completely honest. This was their game to win, and they just didn't close it out. This is so uncharacteristic of them from what we've seen the previous 2 weeks.
I mean, PT Lamb, once again, when his jungle is failing and Rickameza is dying here and there, he manages to find ways to stay even and get ahead. 2 times in the early game, he managed to sneak into the back jungle side of SK and take the backs. And that helped his team not fall too far behind because Petal wasn't getting her jungle, and it helped him to stay even.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, let's take a look at one of the replays coming out on this one. It was around 15 minutes into the game. This was one of the first complete aces of the game coming out.
Yeah, they were able to just get so much damage. This is where the Petal was already very strong. They had shut down Rickameza completely. You can see the difference on your screen, but then it's the Kavalafar able to stay alive. There's no real damage that PT Lamb was able to provide. They take him out first, which is a key thing for this SK composition, to take PT Lamb down, dive onto him immediately, put everything into taking out PT Lamb. That's how you beat a Celeste, because she's going to be that late game hyper carry.
Yeah, I mean, and the fact that that teamfight was in the mid game, that was SK's strongest point. Blackfeather hits a huge power spike mid game, and Petal does too. But because they weren't able to close out the game, late game Celeste comes back and she outscales.
Absolutely. Now, we saw SK manage to grab themselves a Kraken and start to push in alongside that magnificent beast. And this was a moment where SK honestly may have looked towards ending the game, but it overextended a little bit too far.
Yeah, and this is something that's been happening so frequently. It's just a known fact now in Vainglory, where teams they play worse when they have Kraken for some reason. They go extremely aggressive, trying to take down PT Lamb, very nearly take him out, but he gets so much healing. That was really well played by the side of Dynasty in order to keep PT Lamb alive by both himself with the Eve of Harvest and the Fountain coming through, and stepping onto the healing platform, just being a little bit too much for SK to handle. But that shouldn't have been enough for them to turn the game around.
I mean, when you see that team fight too, we have to talk about the win condition from SK. They needed to dive on Celeste and they need to eliminate her. When you're fighting in your enemy's base, that carry can kite back all the way to the fountain and they can heal up and you can't finish them off. So it was about chasing Celeste and choosing to fight in the base unnecessarily. You instead try to fight in areas where you can close out the team fight by killing Celeste.
And this was the turning point for Dynasty. Beyond this, we saw a fight where they actually managed to get an ace, and I want you guys to break this down for me in detail because this was the first time where Dynasty have an open fight like this and managed to win it.
Yeah, I mean, this time Kvalifar tries to flank, but he misses his on point. He gets stunned by the Cruel, and then here he uses his Rose offensive away from the Celeste, and now he's 2 split away. He doesn't use his A until later on, and now he's at half health already, that when he goes in, he actually even ends up stunned again by the core collapse here. This is something that I have to talk about. The composition from Dynasty have 2 crowd control tools, the core collapse and then the ultimate from Cruel. As a Black Feather who has 2 Rose offensive charges, a reflex block, and not even counting the Crucible, none of that CC should land on you. That CC should be either blocked or dodged so that you can finish Celeste. When it doesn't, you just get focused down.
And we have another perfect example of that in this next replay that comes up as well, because this was a situation where we saw the reflex block not quite be perfect here.
Yeah, this was another one where Kvalifar, he's on the back lines. He goes down extremely low, but is able to stay alive, and this was actually a little bit too late, I believe, for what we were going to be talking about here with the stun. So right before that had happened, Kvalifar was trying to get onto the Celeste. The From Hell's Heart came out, he used his reflex block, and then ran in a path to dodge the From Hell's Heart on the way out. He dodged it, but then his reflex block wore off, and the From Hell's Heart hit him on the way back in. So it was, again, I love Kvalifar, but these last 2 fights were almost entirely on him for the reason why SK wasn't able to win them.
Well, it was going to be Dynasty managing to take this one in the end. They obviously finished the push with the Kraken and take game 1, which means Dynasty 1-0 up in our finals against SK Gaming. They are looking to make a statement here. They have guaranteed themselves at least 7 points this week. They're going to be looking for the full 8, though. It's time to start to talk about game number 2 in the series. Draft-wise, what are we expecting here? Because both teams had a great, solid composition. But I want to talk about the first interaction in the draft where we saw the Celeste and Black Feather pickups after interesting bans. Are we expecting to see a similar thing coming into game 2 here?
I mean, I hope that if we see a similar thing, that Kvalifar actually plays the pick better and SK play around it better by diving on Celeste and finishing her off. Both, you have to choose the right place to fight so that you can dive on Celeste. If she's close to turret, you can't do it. If she's near her base, you can't do it. And other than that, you have to dodge the CC so you can finish her off.
Yeah, I mean, the draft was not the issue whatsoever. This was a game SK absolutely 100% should have won, but 2 misplays late in the game end up costing them. So the draft, I don't think, has to change too much from the side of SK. Maybe it needs to change a little bit from Dynasty because of the fact that, you know, they did not end up with a superior draft, but I would expect actually, they're going to ban the Celeste. That's really interesting. I thought for sure SK were going to focus that Arden once again.
I mean, it's just a really strong pick, and while SK had a stronger mid game, I personally wouldn't think they won the draft just because, in my opinion, Dynasty also had the stronger early game, but I don't think they recognized it, and that's why they didn't play aggressive. Adagio and Cruel can outduel Petal and Lance, despite Petal being a counter, at least in my opinion. Dynasty didn't play to it. The other thing that I have to talk about before we get into the draft, Reco Meza needs to step it up because so far it's only PT Lamb that's really carrying this team, and if against SK, especially if they play really well, it's not going to be enough to have only 1 carry.
All right, well, Grace is going to be the first lock-in of this draft, and Dynasty going to go with that comfort pick of the Arden. We've seen Mowgli do exceptional work with it against G2 earlier today, and it's definitely a cornerstone of the compositions that they have been running in recent history.
Yeah, SK is probably going to want to look towards a Kroll ban, but then they need to be wary of the Rhyme pick for the side of Dynasty. Dynasty, if they do allow that... if they don't allow the Kroll to go through, if the Kroll does get banned, they hand away the Scarf. Now Dynasty can grab themselves the Kestrel. Assuming this is a Kroll ban again, if they go for the Kestrel, that's one of the counters to the Rhyme. Taken off the board, it could set them up really well towards the later stage.
I actually think they want to go for the CP Idris here, and that's why they banned the Scarf. Because if they go for the CP Idris, what's the only hero left for Kvalifier to play is the Black Feather that he just played and didn't do too well on it. They can either go for the CP Idris or the Black Feather. If they go for the Black Feather, that also works for them because then they can dive on the CP Idris that Kvalifier will pick. But though that is probably riskier because Kvalifier's CP Idris is definitely one of the strongest in Europe. Other than that, the ban that's going to be coming out from SK is going to be crucial because, like you said, if they leave Cruel open, Dynasty might still pick it up, and it's been working for Rekomeza.
Yeah, again, the Arden Kroll with a hyper carry is what Dynasty used to demolish G2 in the semifinal, and it could just be a repeat performance against SK if that Kroll's not banned. But like you said, there's so many other picks, there's so many other ways that this could go. If they do take away that Kroll, they're going to instead take the Kestrel off the board. So they're saying that they feel like this Arden Kroll only worked because it was the Celeste and the Kestrel in the hands of PT Lamb. But now PT Lamb, he could go for the Idris himself, or do they leave that open for SK?
I really hope Dynasty picks CP Idris here instead of Cruel, because if they go for Cruel and CP Idris gets taken away, they're not going to have a hyper carry. Instead, they go for Rhyme. They even leave Cruel. They're like, we're going to go back to day one of this weekend, and we're going to show you the Rekomeza Rhyme.
I mean, they've already been able to beat a Kroll with the Rhyme a couple of times, so they're not terribly afraid of the Kroll, but with the Idris coming through, now you have the Grace-Idris combo alongside the Kroll. This is a pretty strong comp.
This is Weapon Power Sky that's most likely going to be coming out for PT Lamb. He doesn't have any hyper carries. The Celeste is gone, Kestrel is gone, Idris is gone, and Weapon Power Sky synergizes really well with Rhyme because you can apply a lot of pressure. They're going to take their time thinking about it, and they might show something completely new just to catch SK off guard, but the Weapon Power Sky would work perfectly here. The draft coming out from SK Gaming, the CP Idris, the Cruel, and the Graves, this is a very well-rounded comp. We've talked about it before. It has a lot of early game aggression because of the Cruel, and a lot of late game scaling because of the CP Idris and the Graves.
Could we see something like a weapon powered Jewel going into the lane here just to match up in that? This is definitely a bruiser matchup so far, and Jewel can go toe-to-toe with the best of them. It is going to be the Sky in the end. You are right on this one, Zorro, and it is going to be that weapon power Sky heading on into the lane. So looking at the compositions then, how are we expecting this one to play out? Because it looks like pretty aggressive compositions for both sides here.
Both of these compositions are actually fairly similar in what they're going to be trying to do. You know, Sky and Idris both want to be this hyper carry with Grace, Arden, Kroll, and the Rhyme to kind of be that bruiser frontline and protection for them. So it's going to be just a clash of styles of who ends up coming out on top because of the fact that it's very similar playstyle plans with their comps.
Right. I mean, Dynasty have a clear win condition, which is that to play aggressive around the Sky and the Rhyme. If they do that, if they snowball, they can take the game. They're going to have to be careful about the Cruel level 6, however.
Yeah, Cruel level 6 is always going to be a huge part in any game. It is just about time to jump into the second game of our grand final, though. But we want you guys to let us know who you're supporting on Twitter. Hashtag Vainglory8. Do you think that Dynasty can turn this into a 2-0, or are SK going to even things up and push us to a 3-game final? It's time to find out as we pass it back over to our casters once again and get into game number 2.
Pretty exciting to see these two compositions, Xscoundrel. It's Dynasty's Rhyme, Sky, Mowgli's Arden, and it is, of course, SK on a very convincing composition that they've won so many games on here, Xscoundrel. Both teams pretty much picking up their two most successful compositions. We'll have to see which one trumps the other.
Yeah, and I think Rekomeza specifically is going to have to look to snowball off this Rhyme here. I think Kvalifar, we know, is going to go Frostburn. It's the right decision against the Rhyme to slow his movement speed, make it harder for him to get into the aggressive range that we know Rhyme likes to be in. So we know that that's going to be coming out ASAP, and then once Kvalifar scales up, that will be an issue. PT Lamb, we've seen him do some really, really amazing things in the Weapon Power Sky, but he's got a crystal bit in tow. That's very interesting. Is that something? I don't think that's something he's been starting with when we've seen him on the Weapon Power Sky recently here, Dalsy. So I'm wondering whether this is going to be double crystal power coming out of Dynasty.
Perhaps, maybe it's for harassment in the lane, as the forward barrage could do a little bit more damage to the melee Idris here. I guess only time will tell. It could be double CP coming out. And, you know, against an Idris who will only pick up one piece of defensive could be the case. I guess we'll just have to keep an eye on PT Lamb's build, because yesterday it was very weapon power crit heavy, auto attack speed, pretty much at the limit of the cap. with double tornado triggers.
So, for those of you that were listening yesterday, you'll understand that traditionally Cruel is considered quite good into Rhyme because Rhyme relies on his damage as his sustain. So Rhyme gets his sustain from dealing damage, which is why when people go Shatterglass with Rhyme, he gets more sustain out of it because you generate huge amounts of fortified health. When you reduce his damage weakness stacks, you make him more vulnerable and he doesn't generate as much fortified health, and the reason that Rhyme is good in hand-to-hand combat per se is because of that fortified health generation. So Cruel in that particular instance is why he's pretty decent into Rhyme, and you can see Tyrus here looking to take early advantages because get locked up by the Winter Spire. Eggman now in no man's land.
Be okay with this Grace, very fast movement speed, boots as well, and does just piece on out. Dynasty are rotating down as a 3 to secure this central Treant. Pyro's going to be held at bay with forward barrages and easily secured there for a Dynasty who put a low priority on that Treant, especially for Rickameza on this Rhyme. He clears the jungle so quickly. He wants a bit of the SK jungle here, but there isn't really much to take, so instead just going to hang around in the tri-bush waiting for it to spawn.
Eggman now caught out potentially as Rickameza.
Balafal's rotated here. Rickameza's actually very much in trouble. I think he will be looking to buy time for Mowgli to get away, and he has done that successfully. Tyra should easily be able to deal with the Rhyme here, who is going to look to try and steal as many of these camps away as possible, but unfortunately won't get any. First blood will go over to Tyra's, and like Arakizora said at the beginning of Game 1, cannot be allowing SK to get these early advantages because they're a team that consistently will make a lot out of it.
And PT Lamb picking up the heavy steel does indicate that actually it's going to be weapon power Sky and the CP Rhyme obviously coming through. The Crystal bit maybe just picked up for a little bit of early trading potential, especially in these jungle brawls early on. Maybe the lock-on damage from the forward barrage just going to be a bit amplified by that Crystal bit, but strikes me as a little bit odd. I haven't really seen him make the maximum amount of use out of it right now. I probably would have preferred to just have slightly harder hitting basic attacks. But PT Lamb, we've seen him so well on this weapon power Sky. He's been a major force for Dynasty this week. I think almost every game has seen PT Lamb have an incredible performance. Rickameza on the back foot on this Rhyme, as you probably expect into the matchup. Tyrez has been prioritizing a bit of shielding, as has Hegman, obviously for that fountain, but Tyrez also getting it in there, realizing that the less damage that the Rhyme can do to him, the better it will be in hand duels.
We do see that PG Lamb is going Sora Blade first item, so just using that single crystal bit for the added damage that the forward barrage will get from it, just to try and put pressure on Kavalifar in the lane, although Kavalifar has dealt with it fairly successfully so far.
And you can see already Kavalifar picks up the Frostburn Divergent Paths have been unlocked. Now we're going to have that ability to just slow down Rickameza here. Make him a little bit more difficult for him to position in teamfights and get into that right position. Kavalifar takes a very forward, aggressive move here, and wow, Chakram, whilst not doing the same amount of damage that the Frostburn, the Shatterglass would do, still does a decent chunk of damage when you get the double return on it.
Currently, not much to be said other than that SK have a fairly strong grasp of the early game. However, it wasn't good enough in the previous game where they held pretty much control of the game up until the 16-17 minute mark, and then Dynasty were able to regain it. Tyros, though, will take away this Crystal Sentry uncontested. And there's going to be Dynasty looking to try and push the lane in as hard as possible here to try and put pressure back onto SK. However, they are allowing Tyros to take away the backs, and this is actually just so good for SK. Nothing lost by them, only gold gained, and Rickameza being set behind.
One of the things that we also have yet to talk about is how Weapon Sky, pretty good into the Rhyme, specifically your 4 barrage has a scaling slow that scales with weapon power. You have the ability with the maxed Suri strike and the movement speed from your heroic perk to dance around the bloody Cruel, dance around the Cruel and make it hard for him to lock onto you. So PT Lamb is almost like counterblow for counterblow. PT Lamb trying to counter the Rhyme in this instance. So I think a lot of this game is going to come down to Kavalifar's shoulders. Can he perform in the late game on this CP Idris? He's really the sort of the crucial linchpin for the SK composition, you feel, because whilst, you know, Tyrese is going to have a good time against Rickameza on this Rhyme, PT Lamb on this Sky is going to have a decent time into Tyrese on the Cruel. And then obviously then eyes, like we said, are turned towards Cavalifar.
Important time this Scoundrel. This is the end of Split 1 after this game here. Usually Split 1's 4 weeks and Split 2's 3 weeks, but with Mobile Masters happening next week, it's going to be the other way around, and so important for these teams to gain priority positioning heading into Split 2. Dynasty have already done such a fantastic job of it so far. SK clearly sitting very comfortably at the top of Europe, but want to try and put as much gap between their opponents before heading into Split 2 of the autumn season, if they want to have that singular European world spot.
Yeah, I mean, I think SK need to buck things up here because, you know, if they want to make sure that they secure themselves as the top contender for the European side of things, this is the series that they want to decisively take. If you start struggling against Dynasty, who haven't classically looked like the strongest European team in total, then you will be worries for SK, especially as themselves, their own confidence going forward, because as of yet, they've been fairly unchallenged in their dominance in the region. And now Dynasty stepping up. It's, for SK, they would be probably pretty sad if they end up losing at least the game, because the gauntlet comes through.
Yeah, Death from Above's going to catch up Hegman as well. Tyra's in the front line, doing a bit of damage to Rickameza as he's forced to walk away. Smite doesn't quite kill him though. Rickameza will be able to get under the turret, but look at the amount of health SK has. It's astonishing that everyone is so healthy, and that's an easy turret for them. PT Lamb now looking to escape as Hegman tanks up that forward barrage, and Cavalifar dives forward. Can't quite find the kill with just a Frostburn in his inventory. SK though, strike true, finding that first objective like they so often do, and Tyra's going to take the Crystal Sentry's second life off the board at 8.5.
Goodness me, you saw how poorly Rickameza fared into the Cruel here.
Crystal Sentry.
He's a matchup that he played yesterday, and I think he actually ended up winning, but you know, you now got to play it in the hands of Tyras, who has been playing Cruel so effectively over the last few weeks. I picked it has become so strong on the current update. A lot of bans being targeted towards it by a lot of European teams, and you can see when they do get their hands on it, they try and make it worth its money or worth its weight in gold. Tyra's now working towards what I imagine is going to be a poison shiv. He's gone for the breaking point first item here again. It's that tactic of, if you focus Cavalifar, well, I'm going to be making myself a significant threat in these fights if you're not focusing me. And then the poison shiv will come through and help deny some of the sustain coming up from Mowgli, and some sustain which we imagine will come through from the Eve of Harvest from Rickameza once he finishes up that item.
Currently, Dynasty are looking to scale up this Sky, which is kind of when we've seen Dynasty really take over games with this composition. When Mowgli gets that Echo and Sky gets her 4th damage item, they're really able to output a lot of work. However, Cavalifar is getting closer and closer to finishing his 3rd item, being that Broken Myth, and that's a scary prospect for Dynasty, something they have to consider. Looks like a fight will break out over this gold miner. Gauntlet just traps SK in it, but maybe they're happy to be there as Rickamez is going very low. PT Lamb's trying his best to get onto this Idris, but he cannot, and now PT Lamb has put himself in harm's way. Another kill goes SK's way, 3-0, and a gold miner. Fairly successful day out on the fold. Mowgli's gauntlets have just been creating battlegrounds for SK, not really stunning them where they stand, and now he's in a little bit of trouble as well. With the Frostburn, I don't think he escapes. In fact, he just runs towards the turret to make things a little bit quicker.
Yeah, he's going to put himself out of the misery there. Tyras is going to eliminate the Sentry, and SK are going to start to push down toward this lane. Looks like they needed a wake-up call in that last game, Dalsy, and their alarm has been thoroughly set for win o'clock, as they are trying to bring themselves back into this series. The Death from Above and the Sky will start to push them away, though. Cavalifar is going to start to get focused down.
Yep, but a great holding over should by... Oh, never mind. The tick away on this Rhyme finds the kill. Tyra is probably going to fall as well, you would feel, but maybe after PT Lamb goes down. Maybe not. Rickameza goes this Broken Myth. Tyra is going to get this heal. 9 stacks on Rickameza, but there's just no energy, and he is in so much trouble. Here comes the Cruel looking for his dessert. Tasty Rhyme will escape.
And that's again, just illustrating the Cruel Rhyme matchup. You get those weakness stacks onto the Cruel, no matter how many broken mist stacks he starts to get. That damage is severely limited, his sustain is severely limited, and it's hard to take down Tyrus, who, the more weakness stacks he builds into a target, the more lifesteal he gains against that target. And with those breaking point stacks building up, the lifesteal gets more and more impressive, more and more regenerative for the Cruel, and you end up just, by war of attrition almost, winning out in almost every single duel. Kvalarvar, although locked up by that Winter Spire, still a slight win for SK as they again move on to Mowgli.
Gonna be a great Valkyrie coming down, rooting Tyrus inside this gauntlet. Does stun up PT Lamb, though Mowgli going to be in a bit of trouble, but it's Kvalarvar who's now being threatened as Tyrus falls. Shimmer Strike to put him into a position, but it's hard to escape a Sky. I was going to say a position of safety, but I forget that Theory Strike is an ability that pretty much follows you no matter where you go. Now this turret will go down, and the Gold Miner looks like it's going to be started up as well.
And PT, I think they just disrespected the Death from Above there. The Death from Above was the single most impactful ability used in that last fight. It almost beautifully placed on top of Tyrus, essentially stopping any move that he was trying to make to follow up from the Hegman's benediction, and then just was stuck in place, allowed Rickameza and PT Lamb to get the damage down onto him. And you could see then Tyrus was split between diving PT Lamb with his ultimate and then splitting back onto Rickameza to try and build stacks and look for a smite, neither of which worked because he kind of went 50-50 on both, and then it allowed Dynasty to clear him up and then focus onto Kvalarvar, who has now picked up his broken myth. So let's give credit where credit is due. We're hitting later game CP Idris, which is kind of where, whenever you pick a CP Idris, your ideal scenario is, and it's at 13 minutes, so not a too bad time for him to have picked up this many items. Has also got the armor and the reflex block, so maybe looking for just a 3-item CP Idris build in total. With the Frostburn, you feel like sometimes that lacks a little bit of damage, but if they're looking for elongated fights with the Breaking Point Cruel, maybe they're just going to rely on those broken mid stacks.
Although Breaking Point picked up for PT Lamb means that he will also be stacking up as the time goes on Rickameza as well. Very scary. It's going to be very interesting to see if Kval does decide to sell one of those defensive items and go for a 4 damage item build instead, because as the fight does go on, you have to feel that Dynasty Gaming's damage also becomes pretty strong. Great Gauntlet going to lock up Tyra as a Valkyrie. Doesn't quite connect though from Rickameza. Now it is going to be SK looking for the re-engage. Tyra's doesn't quite find the stun. Great Crucible comes through, but Rickameza's melting as we speak. PT Lamb trying to stack up that Breaking Point, trying to lay down the damage. Has to get onto Kvalarvar, but instead he finds himself going down to this Idris. 1, 2, and a third for Kval. Except it was Tyrus who got the double. It's an ace nonetheless, Scoundrel, and it's SK's ace.
Yeah, that was actually a lot about Hegman in that fight. That Holy Nova from him in the middle of the Suri strike from Sky was just unbelievably timed, allowing Kvalarvar the space to back off. If that hadn't hit and PT Lamb had finished the Suri strike, you can't help but feel with the amount of breaking point stacks that he had, Kvalarvar would have got locked down. There's a replay coming through. Let's just take a quick look at that. The initial gauntlet, not so good. SK were very easily able to dive back out of it. But take a look at Hegman, a couple of some really key Holy Novas to lock things up. Block on the block on the ultimate from Tyrus is not so bad, and you can see immediately Kvalarvar forced into a defensive position. The Divine Intervention saves his life once, the Holy Nova saves his life twice, and by this point you're looking at a heavily stacked Idris with lots of broken mid stacks coming through. Hegman, massive MVP in that fight for the timing of his abilities.
Time and time again, steps up when his team needs him the most and provides just that, the protection for his team. Dynasty may look for round 2 here as we fight in a very similar position. Mowgli has that gauntlet available once more, but no echo available for the Arden this time. There's an echo on that Divine Intervention that you have to fear. That's why the Poison Shiv from P&M is there to stop the healing that Kvalarvar has. There's that gauntlet. That's a route onto Kvalarvar. He's going to Shimmer Strike, gets to the other side of the gauntlet, trying to just escape Divine Intervention, doing so much work, and PT Lamb's going very low. He's in trouble, tries to Suri Strike away, trying to get away of Tyrus, but it's going to be a smite in just a second to kill him if PT Lamb's not careful. Does position very well, does survive as well. It's a 1-for-1 trade. The junglers are dead, leaving just a carry and a captain each on both teams. The fight being disengaged as well.
Yeah, and Kvalarvar able to back out there. Rickameza has picked up a Atlas Pauldrons as well. You can see he's actually really limited his offensive build path, and you can see in that fight as well why PT Lamb has picked up this Sky into the Cruel. With the kite back on such low HP, the slowing of the forward barrage meant that Ryan was unable to finish off his target without that gap closing and without the smite to get the executing blow as well. It's essentially the breaking point race versus the broken myth race here for SK, because they spent most of that fight. Kvalifar had a brilliant shimmer strike, by the way, to dodge a huge amount of CC. I think he dodged the Valkyrie entirely, allowed him to get onto the other side of the gauntlet. Then he just basically played stacking wars with Sky. Whilst the weakness stacks were building on Sky, stops her quick stacking of the broken myth, by the way. If you get those weakness stacks onto her, she's going to stack the breaking point much more slowly. And then that allowed Kvalifar to trade evenly in a basic attack duel with her, as Kvalifar was obviously generating those broken myth stacks.
Currently we see PT Lamb looking to try and get what I have to imagine would be a bone saw online so he can shred through Tyrus a little bit quicker, has that metal jacket in tail. Kvalifar very forward in this fight, does get engaged on. That's going to be a gauntlet stunning him up on the side, and it is going to be Rikumeza trying to get onto this Idris. Valkyrie dodged out, but it is Tyrus taking so much damage, and he will go down at the beginning of the fight. Rikumeza may fall just as quickly, and now it's the captain carry combination. PT Lamb dancing, but a double kill comes through for him, takes down the Idris, and now he's looking for Hegman as well. Forward barrage to slow down. It's divine intervention. No, it's for benediction. It's a death for this Grace. And Dynasty do it. The breaking point comes out trumps for PT Lamb, the position in game 1. And a Kraken for Dynasty.
Wow, maybe the piercing spear was all that he needed to give him the extra slight edge and take Tyrus out, who got again kited around by PT Lamb. Just when this guy is needed for his team, he steps up at the correct moment. I think one of the major issues with Kvalifar was he walked back into the gauntlet wall in that fight. It was another great shimmer strike to miss that ultimate from the Valkyrie, but Tyrus gets taken out there. Once Kvalifar finds the kill with another, amazing use of the Holy Nova from Eggman. The audacity and the knowledge for PT Lamb to know that he has the capability to jump to the back line and kill Kvalifar before Kvalifar can kill him shows you how well this guy is playing. Has been a standout performer. The Bonesaw gets finished, and suddenly the long game fights look on equal pegging between Kvalifar and PT, as Kvalifar finishes up his harvest now.
That might just be enough to tip it back in favor towards Kvalifar, Scoundrel. Really just depends on how much damage PT Lamb takes in the process. The poison chip heals, but for how much? It's not as much, I don't think, as an Eve of Harvest. Kraken finds the first turret here of its push. Taking a lot of damage though as it pushes towards the choke point turret, and Dynasty will not even entertain a fight around it, instead going to move in and take down the Crystal Sentry instead. One thing that Mowgli still doesn't have is an Echo. 90 minutes, it's very difficult for this captain to get it, has to invest so much money into flares. Perhaps it's not going to ever become a thing. Instead, an Echo is going to come out of Rikumeza. Double Valkyries on the horizon.
Wow, that's really interesting, and that lends you to believe that this is now more of a sort of it sounds funny to say, but a utility-focused Ryan. Just looking to put pressure and either get a double root and sort of stun up onto Kvalifar.
Going to be that gauntlet going down. Valkyrie hasn't been used just yet. Instead it has. It's going to come out again in just a second. There it is, double Valkyrie. Knocks up Tyrus. But look at PT Lamb struggling to dance around this. Cruel, the divine interventions keeping him alive. Mowgli and Rikumeza are so low. And Riku falls. Mowgli just trying to buy time. PT Lamb backing. Escapes just about. But Mowgli unfortunately cannot. Now, with just 2 Vayne Crystal turrets separating SK from their win in this series, we'll have to see if they decide to push heavily towards the base.
They don't have too much time to work with here, Darcy, though. It feels like that was a team fight win for the sake of team fight win. They might be able to push with this wave. PT Lamb is up and available. A stray catch onto him might be all that they need, and in 10 seconds, Tyrus does have that ultimate available. PT Lamb will be forced to have to reflex block, and SK are looking to push this one out. They are very, very close to having the rest of the Dynasty Gaming roster up and ready to fight, though, so they look like they're going to back off with just 1 turret as their bounty.
Yeah, Rikumeza has respawned, has Mowgli. Fusions picked up for both Riku and PT Lamb. Mowgli is working towards that Echo for himself. Void Battery picked up. Will he be giving... Yeah, he's getting the lane gold as well. Dynasty really want him to have this Echo on board for the next fight, so look at how they give Mowgli the backs here as well. I wouldn't be surprised. Really want Mowgli to have this gold, and he's starting to get closer towards an Echo.
You're seeing also how... We talked about yesterday how teams will punish Orion a little bit more heavily than we saw yesterday. Rickameza has felt like he's done nothing in these fights. Even the double Valkyrie in that last fight didn't feel very impactful. He's got one damage item. He's acting as a utility Rhyme at this point in time. And they're all playing around PT Lamb being able to back up and be the main carry in these fights. I am just now starting to worry about maybe a lack of damage coming out for Dynasty. Like, is a Broken Myth Rhyme simply enough with the Echo on him there? Just feels like he's been very easily circumvented in these fights, and he's been a non-issue for SK for the majority of it.
We're heading back to heal. How much is Echo when you have Void Battery? Was it 1300? Am I wrong?
1400.
1400?
Yeah, it
must be 1500 because he's running back to lane at this point to pick up the ambient. And now he will back 1500. So Echo is now available for Mowgli. Crucial timing for Dynasty as the Kraken has respawned. Is their utility composition enough to allow PT Lamb the work? Here we go. Fount is going to go down. That's going to be a stun onto Hegman. There's the second gauntlet. Stuns up. Cavalifar in the middle of it all. His Shimmer Strikes out. Now they're looking for Tyra's. Tyra's going very low. Tyra's still being healed by Divine Interventions. Fountain will come out for PT Lamb. Rickameza moving on in. Has used both his Valkyries as we speak. And PT Lamb struggling to get out. Gets wholly novaed. But they've taken down K-Val, the major damage source of SK. And now Tyra's will be following. Double kill for PT Lamb. Hegman running away. Perhaps this utility composition from Dynasty was all that was necessary.
Wow, I think more PT Lamb has just been playing an absolutely stellar game so far. He has just been able to dance around in the right positions at the right time.
Ace.
Gets the ace to boot. PT Lamb almost untouchable there. Cavalifar playing a very different style to we've seen him play. I think at this point you don't have to worry about Rickameza, so you just kind of kite backwards against him. But Cavalifar jumping in there, trying to put pressure onto PT Lamb. Tyra is now at the point where he's getting kited so easily as well. This guy, PT Lamb, I mean, I always knew he was a good carry, but he's been playing on another level that even I have ever seen him play. Have a look at that fight. The double Echo on the gauntlet was so important because look how it restricted the movement of SK. A composition that they kind of want the movements to use, right? You know, you've got a CP Idris, very, very mobility-focused carry. You've got a Cruel who relies on that movement speed to keep on top of his targets. With the double gauntlet coming out from Mowgli, it really restricted the gameplay space for SK, meaning that actually Rhyme could be a bit more effective. And the fact that PT Lamb could dance around an area that was just so easily defined. I think that was one of the major breakpoints for that fight. The Echo coming out of Mowgli really limited a highly mobile composition from SK.
Not only that, the Valkyries pretty much guaranteed to connect on Tyros and Hegman when they're stuck in a gauntlet. Another one will come through. Tyros gets stunned up as he tries to come in. Second gauntlet separates the team, and Cavalifar stuck in the middle of it. Great stun onto PT Lamb. Now it's Tyros moving in to try and lay down the damage. Cavalifar left outside, but Holy Nova knocks up PT Lamb. He's going very low. Fountain to try and heal. Tyros looking for a smite, trying to get the kill down as Cavalifar will move in as well. Don't forget, Kraken is alive. Kraken is pushing in. And Rickameza's moving with it, though will backport as we speak. PT Lamb not able to stop Styras, but it is going to be Riku finding the backport. This Kraken will find a turret here in the base. The choke point went down earlier as well. Slowly but surely, Dynasty get closer and closer to their first European week win.
Cavalifar actually played that fight really well with the Shimmer Strike, got himself right onto the edge of those gauntlets. Yes, he got stunned on the second one, but managed to push himself out of that range and then was able to reset his position. Also, you can see Hegman has put up a bit of CP to back up that double heal that he's now got with the Echo, obviously. And that you can see how impactful these Divine Interventions have been, Dowsy. I think there have been some team fight saving Divine Interventions from Hegman. If I was to pick out a player that I think has performed out of his mind in all of the series that we've seen from SK today, I would definitely be looking towards Hegman. The guy has been unbelievable in the captain role. I often don't think that the captain players get enough love sometimes, and Hegman has been really, really good. That Holy Novas have been almost pinpoint perfect, even managing to catch up PT Lam in that last fight, giving a split crucial second for Tyrus to catch up and continue to apply pressure to him. So, I mean, Hegman's been fantastic. They're looking to make a death brush happen here. I'm wondering if Dynasty Gaming know that. They don't want to extend too much further past.
There's no flares available to them. Absolutely none at all. The Dynasty may just opt in to play in the lane and not allow SK the possibility. Tyrus leading the charge. That's going to be a gauntlet going down. A stun onto Rikumez. A second gauntlet gets issued. Valkyrie stuns up the melees. And now it's all on to Kavalifar, who's falling very low. Stuns himself in the gauntlet with the Shimmer Strike. It is Tyrus now going low. And PT Lam as well. He's dead. SK have done it. There's no stopping them now. A second kill will come through. Mowgli the third. The ace will come out. And SK will tie the series here at Scoundrel 1 apiece. Intense team fights, but SK able to come up on top.
It's not been easy for SK. They were made to work for this victory at 27 minutes, nearing 28, and you know, it's been a very, very, very close affair. But finally, SK come out on top after what was, you know, a very messy team fight from them. PT Lam just a little bit out of position. Again, a good use of the Shimmer Strike from Kavalifar to try and negate as much of the CC and damage as possible. But Hegman once more, some absolutely crucial divine interventions, keeping his team in fighting shape. Incredible series, incredible series. And we're going to a third game as well. We'll have to see what comes out. I don't want to see a rhyme. I think it was played around way too nicely by SK this time round. I think, you know, Dynasty, when they stick to something more conventional, look that much more impressive. So we'll have to see how the draft spells out in our third game.
Certainly will, Scoundrel. SK will not say die here in week 3 of Split 1. Series tied up 1 apiece. Let's hear back from our analysts.
What a day of games we are having today. That was an absolute epic battle between these two teams. Once we got to the later stages of the game, these team fights were going on for so long. It was so close each and every single time. SK managed to take it in the end, though. They edge it out in that final team fight.
Yeah, it was so incredibly close. I mean, these fights could have gone either way. It just came down to small, minute details. I mean, the double gauntlets were amazing from Mowgli. The divine interventions were unbelievable from Hegman. And somehow, some way in these fights, Kavalifar was able to stay alive. Despite Riku Meza, you know, he had a terrible KDA at the end, but his movements to keep Kavalifar off of PT Lam for most of these team fights were really well played. Tyrus being able to lock down PT Lam, like everyone was playing so well.
I mean, because of his build too, he had only a broken myth for damage. That's exactly why he was staying on or alive for so long, because he was more about utility, more about defense. He couldn't finish off Idris, but he didn't die either. So the entire win condition or the entire strategy Dynasty was going for is to keep Sky alive, and they did so well for so many team fights, but it didn't end up working at the end.
All right, let's get into some of the replays from this game, and I want to start around 17 minutes into the game. Obviously, early game is important in a lot of matches in Vainglory. When you get to the 30-minute mark before the game ends, it starts to lose relevance.
Yeah, at this point, it just becomes all about team fights. And again, this is one of those ones where you can see just how long Kavalifar is staying alive thanks to the heals coming out from Hegman. But PT Lam is just kiting for days, keeping himself safe and able to just win out these trades, but eventually goes in, gets that kill onto Kavalifar. Looked for sure like it was going to be a team fight for SK, but PT Lam just has been performing out of his mind thus far today.
Yeah, he certainly has. PT Lam on this weapon, Sky, showing an absolute masterclass in kiting in some of these team fights. That one was a great example of it. Obviously, they get themselves the ace off of that one. But the next fight, just before the 20-minute mark, this is another one where it very drawn-out fight, but once again, great engages from Mowgli.
Yeah, and this time, Arden engages with the gauntlet. This was before he had an echo, so he no longer had a gauntlet to kite for Sky when SK decided to focus her. So when the cruel ult landed, you're gonna see SK try to close out, and because Rhyme is also very squishy, not squishy, but very low on health, they turn their focus, they focus Sky. There isn't much peeling because, as I said, the gauntlet was already used offensively, and this was a mistake from Dynasty because once that happened, SK were just able to focus Sky, and they didn't kill her, but they were able to win the team fight.
Absolutely. Now, this next team fight, I want you guys to watch out because you just mentioned the lack of echo on Mowgli right there. At 22 minutes and 40 seconds, Mowgli grabs his echo. Literally seconds later, they immediately start a fight, and with the double gauntlet, things turn around.
Yeah, 5 seconds after picking up the echo, the double gauntlet catches everyone. They are all stunned up inside this gauntlet. Blocks have to come out, and you can see PT Lamb again on the backside. Kvalifar rotates down to try and get there, and immediately PT Lamb goes up to the top of the lane while Riku Meza just distracts Kvalifar long enough so that PT Lamb can continue to kite around, build up those breaking point stacks. You can see 18 stacks when he finally takes down Kvalifar, and then it's just, from there it's just cleaning up onto the Kroll who can't get onto him. You cannot chase a Sky as a Kroll. It just is something that can't happen physically because of the slows and the movement speed boost that Sky gets.
Yeah, and honestly, off the back of a couple of team fight wins coming out from Dynasty, it felt like they were the favorites to take this one. But then SK in this final fight managed to turn things around once again, and this was a much quicker fight than what we've seen in the other ones.
I mean, to be honest, SK should have been winning these team fights so easily. Like, Dynasty should have never had an opportunity to fight back just because of the compositions. The CP Idris and the Grace late game are so incredibly strong. But because of the double gauntlets that we see here coming out because of the Echo, that created so much limitation, so much restriction for SK to move around the team fight, and at the same time created so much room for PT Lamb to dance around in the team fight. At the end there, though, SK managed to get on Sky and finish her off, which was exactly what they needed to do. Every time they focused the front line, they ended up losing because Sky was stacking her breaking point the entire team fight. But when they managed to get on top of her, when they managed to just focus her down, they won the team fights.
It certainly wasn't an easy task to focus the Sky, but once they managed to get on top of that, they managed to win those team fights for themselves. It's time to start to talk about the next upcoming game. It's one apiece in this series, and what a final it has been so far. I can't wait to get into this one, but I have to ask you guys, what is the focus going to be? Because Game 1 and Game 2 were dramatically different games.
Yeah, I mean, that makes it hard to predict what the focus is going to be in the draft because we saw two very different focuses in the draft. Game 1, they wanted to make sure to take the Arden and Kroll, like that front line, away from the side of Dynasty. Game 2, they were trying to focus on the carry aspect a little bit more. They weren't really able to completely remove either facet of the game, but by focusing on getting themselves the carry, I think that is the key for both sides, really, is to focus on just getting yourself situated, focus on yourself first, and then worry about what your opponents are going to be bringing and try and deal with that.
And then for Dynasty, they need to make sure that they don't give away to SK the CP Idris. It's too strong of a pick. And if you're going to be going for an early game aggression composition with the Sky weapon power, you need to apply that aggression and you need to get ahead. Because if you don't, later on, you don't have a hyper carry. And despite they were winning those team fights, they should not have been winning those team fights. CP Idris late game scaling is a lot stronger. So play around your composition better or draft into what you want to play.
All right, well, the draft is underway. Dynasty starting off with a Grace span. It's going to be answered by SK, disallowing this Celeste. They do not want to have to deal with PT Lamb on that pickup.
So now Dynasty, obviously they could. There's a lot of different ways they could have gone. I was gonna say maybe the Rhyme first pick. They could have gone for the Arden first pick. Instead, they take the Lance. So this is a little bit of a shakeup for them. Maybe gonna be moving away from that Arden tank and hyper carry composition. But it is still, Lance is something that could still go into the jungle and still fulfill that same role if they can get the Arden later on in the draft.
The reason why they picked the Lance is so they can have a stronger early game dueling in the jungle. The last game with playing the Rhyme into the Cruel, Rhyme sometimes can outmatch Cruel, but that's only if you play it extremely well. Last game we saw Rhyme not be able to get ahead, and that's what the playstyle the Dynasty are trying to go for. Stronger jungle matchups so that you can play aggressive and get leads. That's the cornerstone of it. If you have a stronger matchup, you can win it. So when they see that SK are also prioritizing the same thing, the jungler, if it's even, it lies down to the roamers. If a roamer is a stronger early game, then the duel, because it's 2v2, ends up being stronger. So Dynasty are trying to get the line so that they can have a stronger early game and try to play aggressive.
However, they have let through a Catherine Batiste combo, which is not a pleasant combo to have to deal with, especially if you want to be team fighting.
Yeah, and especially if you want to go for this Arden, if they were still thinking of doing something like an Arden Lance with a hyper carry, now there's multiple ways that the gauntlets can get canceled out, and that could be devastating to the plan of Dynasty. So expect them to take a little bit of extra time on this pick as they try and think about what they want. It is going to be a pedal for Dynasty, completely shaking it up from what we have seen on them thus far.
I mean, they did tell us they've been practicing a lot, so this could be a pick that they have been practicing to match what NA has showed us with the open power pedal in the lane. It could also go to jungle. Let's see what they end up picking. But at Baptiste with the Catherine, that's a very strong composition coming for SK. A lot of CC, a lot of late game scaling, a lot of team fighting presence too. So Dynasty need to make sure that they have something to fight back with.
Looks like this is going to be the weapon power petal with a scarf locked on in there for Riku Meza in the jungle. Now I'm curious to see how SK are going to round out this composition, what they're going to take into lane to go up against this petal.
Yeah, this is a little bit of a risky composition from Dynasty just because there's a lot of ways with the Catherine and the Baptiste to either prevent the petal from being able to use their basic attacks with those fears and stuns, and they can also stop the Scarf ult with the same thing. So there's definitely a high-risk, high-reward composition from Dynasty, which you would normally don't say about a Scarf petal. It's normally a very low-risk composition, but because of what they're playing it into, these reflex blocks are going to have to be massive. And here's SK.
Classic summer season composition right here. Baron, Catherine, Baptiste. This is like the pinnacle of 3 patches ago. I'm excited to see how SK are going to play this one, because we haven't seen Baron yet this season, I don't think.
I mean, no, we haven't seen him, and I actually was talking about him last week. I think people are overlooking him. Yes, he's not as strong as he used to be, but his late game is still monstrous, and if he manages to scale, that's what SK's composition is going to be about. If they manage to make it through early game, get to a team fighting stage, they're going to be extremely strong.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at the playstyles of Weapon Power Petal and Baron, they're actually fairly similar. They both have increased auto attack scaling. They both have a leap that you use during a team fight. They both have great burst damage as well. So this is going to be a very interesting lane matchup, and I have no idea how this one's going to play out. It's time to jump into our final and find out for ourselves. Get online on social media. We have a Baron in the game. Hashtag Vainglory8. Let us know whether you want Dynasty to finish this one off or if SK are getting the 2-1. It's time to head into the grand final with Dowsy and Excoundrel.
Thank you very much, Munchables. Excoundrel, we've time walked back to 1955. Back to the future here. Kvalifar is on this Baron with a Catherine and a Baptiste. Pretty scary composition. We'll have to see how Baron does here in autumn.
I mean, if you mean by 1955, you mean 6 months ago, then yes, Dowsy, we have definitely time warped. Kvalifar,
Marty,
a bit of an old school pick. Aggressive maneuvers by Dynasty Gaming coming out, though, trying to get a bit of an early presence here. And interestingly enough, the Baron, he's a pretty tanky carry. Like, you don't think about it, but he's got pretty high base health. And combined with resistances, it makes him fairly hard to take out. And as a weapon power petal, this is a pick that is specifically considered pretty good into the likes of those squishier CP carries with limited mobility. That's not really Baron. Baron is a bit tankier, has got a bit of mobility in his kit with that jump, and I mean, he's going to be able to chunk through those. Not that the munions matter too much as the weapon power build path, but they're going to go down in an instant. So that'll leave open easy pickings for Kvalifar to burst one of the lowest base HP carries in the game in the form of the petal out, and then almost one of the other lowest base HP, sort of low base HP values on this scarf too. So I think Iraqi's right. A lot of people overlooking Baron, but I still think he is very strong, and SK saving it to the very last game of the Autumn Season 1 to bring it out with a really strong composition in the form of the Baptiste Catherine as well.
Yeah, split one here, about to finish. Dynasty looking for some aggressive moves. That's going to be an ordained onto Riku Meza, keeping him locked up. But here comes PT Lamb looking for some damage onto Kvalifar. There's that jump jet, but the damage is strong. Eggman now may be in trouble if Mowgli was to connect that impale. The jump forward, Kvalifar might go down! Minions trying to find the kill, Mowgli! Auto attacks, and there it is, 1 over, but Tyrus has found first blood. He's looking for a second, it's a double kill for Tyrus, and it's all gone wrong for Dynasty. Looking for a triple kill at 3 minutes, 20 seconds. Mowgli failing the jump, it's a triple for Tyrus.
Oh my, this is something that always happens with CP Baptiste. He seems underwhelming, his damage output seems low, and then suddenly those souls fill up and the bad mojos rain down like a fiery, destructive storm, and it just absolutely chunks through these very squishy targets, and it's something that happens every time I see people play against the Batiste. Like, oh, those bad mojos don't feel so bad. And then suddenly he hits his empowerment, and they're like, oh, wait, they're chunking half my HP. It's their very quick switch on from the CP Batistas. I think actually Tyrus manages to secure that, and the aggressive moves time and time again from Dynasty moving into that forward Treant get thwarted this time around.
You know, Scoundrel, as a play-by-play caster, I'm allowed to offer some fantastic analysis every now and again.
I'm ready.
Dynasty Gaming have taken Weapon Power Petal, but no Pew Pew skin. They lose.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I completely agree. I think if I were to offer that analysis up in the high-level scenes of VG, a lot of them would agree with you. I mean, Starboy did create the wonderful analysis of the Finn pick, and I think you know he'll be very proud of your analysis there.
I think he would. Cavalifar, though, is in a little bit of trouble. But now it's Mowgli who's going to be stunned up and ordained. Brought into the church of Catherine and Baptiste. PT Lamb running around, jumping around. Hasn't died yet, but Rikumeza walks straight into a death trap. And now it should be Rikumeza taking a whole host of hurt. Cavalifar's very low, so that's why we're not seeing him go forward. And actually, they managed to turn the kill around. Now it's PT Lamb with an auto attack from downtown, but Healing Flask keeps Cavalifar alive. And that was a Pew skin. It would have been a kill. In fact, Dynasty pay for the lack of Pew skins with Hegman taking down the Scarf. All connected, Scoundrel. Illuminati confirmed.
Yeah, I mean, this is the third game in the series. There are 3 sides to a triangle. I think Illuminati has thoroughly been confirmed here, Dalsy, and I'm glad you're the investigator that has brought this to the attention of all of those thrilled Twitch chat viewers that will be glad to know that is the case.
True. So, 2-4, Dynasty have fallen out of the lead in this first game of the third series. Of the other ways around, my brain not working as my flu symptoms starting to take over my mental capacity. However, SK have done all right here. Tension Bow has been picked up for Cavalifar, Shadowglass for Tyras, Fountain as well. They've kind of survived a bit of the early game with a bit of a lead for themselves, but Cavalifar very risky, goes forward. There's going to be Mowgli in trouble, and they're going to knock Rikumeza away. His breath wasn't cancelled though, so he can come and try and burn people alive. However, was a little bit too far away to do any damage. Though Spitfire connects onto Cavalifar, Fountain will be popped. Seems like SK are in the driver's seat, however, they're struggling to all sync up their damage onto the single target, and because of that, Dynasty are being allowed to poke back in similar fashion.
The one thing that Baron has going in his favor, by the way, is that extended range that he gets when he levels that ultimate. And the one thing that you'll notice from PT Lamb is when he uses the trampoline, especially when it's maxed, his range actually goes beyond what Baron could do, if only for a limited period of time. Maybe that's that time period where you need to see massive advantages gained in teamfights if the Fountain comes out from Mowgli, but he goes down.
He does, Scoundrel. You play by play like a champion. Now, Dynasty, without their captain, may be forced under turret here. It really just depends on what SK want to do. They're looking for a stun, in fact, onto PT Lamb, who trampolines to safety. Now SK to push it in.
They'll slowly shove this wave in here. They're going to back off. Good defense by them. Cavalifar has picked up a bit of gold in tow as well. Working towards a very traditional weapon power Baron build as well. Going for the Tension Bow, gets a double squishy target. That does make a lot of sense. Then into the Sorrow Blade, only to what I imagine will then be followed by a Tornado Trigger and Tyrant's Monocle. So very, very classic build coming out from Cavalifar here. But a good defense by them means they won't lose that first turret of the game, Dalsy, which means they'll be able to continue to farm this lane without much duress. And Cavalifar will continue to buy those items. What is the formula that we use for Baron? Is it 3 turrets before 3 items? I don't know if that's still the case these days, but let's just use it anyway.
Why not? Sounds good to me. Silence goes out, Rikumeza will die. Mowgli not able to output a Fountain because it hasn't respawned yet. 3, 2, 1. And now it's there. Impale onto Cavalifar. Hegman looking threatening here as Cavalifar dives forward. Mowgli has to pop that Fountain, you think? Perhaps he will, and he does. PT Lamb can heal up with the minions. Does he have the damage output to keep his turret alive is the question. Another stun on to Mowgli, and that might just be Mowgli dying. No, another healing flask, very clutch to keep himself alive. Rukameza will make himself up to the lane where he can provide Spitfires and Goops at range to clear waves. PTLM's going on to Cavalifar, but a fountain will come out. PTLM might just die, he does! The pedal so squishy. Tyrus will easily walk away from Rukameza as well. SK are just having their cake and eating it at the moment. Makes a lot of sense. If you have cake, you do want to eat it.
Again, though, there's not a huge differential having been built up right now. We're still got a fight potentially coming on as Tyrus looks for a flank.
Can he do the damage? Cavalifar goes down during the flank. Mowgli walks away with it. It's the captains picking up a kill piece there, Scoundrel.
Well, you know, Catherine never too bad with kills, and Mowgli now able to accelerate towards the ever so important Crucible, which comes out super quickly here. No Wave Gauntlet prioritized by Hegman. I imagine then he's going to go towards an Echo following this, and we all know how destructive. I mean, for those of you that are new viewers, I imagine a lot of you will have seen this composition before. The reason this composition very rarely gets to see the light of day is specifically because you have a No Wave Gauntlet now from Hegman, got the 2-point-something second silence. It scales up depending on how many levels you've got. You echo it and get another 2-point-something second silence out. And then you add into the mix the Fearsome Shade, which, you know, extends that effective silence by fearing the enemy team away from the Fearsome Shade location. So you've essentially got a combination of around 5 to 6 seconds worth of CC, which completely crushes team fights. It means you've got 6 seconds where you can cast no skills and practically do nothing in the fight, and that's why this composition is so widely contested and feared, and often doesn't get to see its way through drafts.
I definitely was very surprised when I saw that Batiste not banned away, Idris instead banned, and how many times have we seen teams target Cavalifar's hero pool without success? Just doesn't work.
It's been a question. It's been a question thrown up quite a lot recently. Oh, Tyrus takes half of his HP in a singular.
Yeah, it's going to be a silence though. It means that PT Lamb can't jump forward to increase his damage, and Rukameza was in trouble anyway. Fountain's been used by Mowgli to keep Rukameza alive for now, as PT Lamb does dive forward for a single auto attack. A double impale from Mowgli. Cavalifar, though, he's starting to be a little bit scary. Everyone on Dynasty a little bit low here as the turret will be focused by SK. Eggman burning alive is not going to die. Might be Mowgli and Rukameza are in trouble now as Cavalifar dives forward and finds himself a scarf. 10-3.
And Petal's dead somehow.
Petal died to
Petal
backs. She died to backs, Scoundrel. EU Treant OP. Very important to note here that we are playing in Europe, where the Treants have better AI, obviously, Scoundrel, and so they do more damage and root you far easily.
You know, we were discussing the other day, Dalsy, when people were saying they were picking weapon power Petal into the likes of Celeste and Scarf for the reason that you find that trampoline and look for a lot of burst damage. Do you know I said to you, why are people just not picking Baron instead?
You did actually say that, and you know, I agree with that because of the fact that they play similar. You know, you use your jump jets to go forward and do lots of damage, you use the trampoline to do it. Seems odd that you would pick Petal here when, well, I guess Baron was last pick, so I can't really criticize it too much, but they basically do the same thing, except in your mind, Baron does it better.
Yeah, I think they offer different kind of styles. Baron is a bit more burst focused, whereas Petal has a little bit more. Obviously, they both build for burst damage, but you know, Baron's got a very low base attack speed, so it's all about making those initial double rockets count. But you get a massive amount of burst from those double rocket hits, which is why I've always thought, like, when you see Celeste and Scarfs go through, why are people just not saying, "Hey, let's pick Baron up and see how he does in that?" Because I just feel like he's been performing really well in this instance as well against these low HP targets, and that's kind of what Baron has always excelled at doing, just blowing up low HP targets. And Cavalifar now, with the tornado trigger in tow, needs just one more weapon power item to make this work. As he bounces and gets another. Look at the damage! Just dumb! It's still dumb. Baron's still dumb damage.
Dumb damage. Catherine and Batiste as well. Dumb CC. Dynasty struggling right now as their turret will fall. Mowgli delivering rockets to Rukameza, who will just go down to Hegman. And Cavalifar dives forward and says, "I want you, Mowgli," as well, though impales under the turret means that Kvalifar takes a bit of damage in the process. A lot of damage because he's still tanking it. Still tanking it as we speak. He goes down to just 0 HP, but survives anyway. Now it's going to be Mowgli under the turret, trying his best to keep Tyrus off PT Lamb here. Both of them very low. Is going to be Hegman dying to the turret. The turret will fall nonetheless, and a little bit sloppy from SK, but like I said, they might not be too upset considering that they're taking the base of Dynasty in the process.
Yeah, now Kvalifar with 3,000 gold banked. He's going to go back, and you imagine pick up... I think he can pretty much pick up whatever he likes, so probably a Tyrant's Monocle. Yeah, there we go, Tyrant's Monocle in the bank. And now Kvalifar can decide what his final item will be once he sells that healing flask off. Wondering whether he'll go for a reflex block just to stop himself getting impaled by Mowgli, or maybe even just that armor double tornado trigger out on PT Lamb. But if Kvalifar went for a metal jacket here, pretty much untouchable for PT Lamb, and you can see he's outranging Rikomeza in a lot of ways because he's able to just circumvent that Spitfire by using the jump and then just find those long-range seeking basic attacks onto Rikomeza and try and burst him down. Baron showing that he's not, you know, he might be an old dog, but he's got new tricks, and those tricks are exactly the same tricks he had before. They just look new because people haven't played him in a while.
Well, you think about health, right? Scoundrel Rikomeza only has 1,600. PT Lamb has 14,500. Not much, really. This Baron just does so much work to them. Oh god, Rikomeza almost taken down in one swift shoot, but they managed to take down the Baron! Somehow, Fearsome Shade will come out of Tyrus. He's got an Echo, so he's got 2 of them. Now it is going to be Dynasty looking to try and get some revenge. They can find an ace in the next half minute. Then maybe they can take a Kraken really quickly. We'll have to find out. That's going to be Hegman going down. 20 seconds till the Kraken spawns, 8 until Kvalifar spawns. It's not likely. But perhaps the turret will be enough for them to start getting some gold into their pockets.
Yeah, that was just a really nice collapse by Dynasty Gaming. They actually had PT Lamb on the sidelines. Tyra is now locked into a duel. Tyrus is just straight up dead.
Okay, Kavalifar's coming forward. Scout traps! Almost find the kills. Oh dear, Rikumeza's got to stand over another one. Don't backport, Riku! Oh, it just about gets away. It's another one! PT Lamb, you're in trouble! Okay, he's fine.
Oh.
Here comes Kavalifar, and Mowgli will knock him back. Scary thoughts for Dynasty there. We do know that Scout Traps also do more damage here in Europe and have claimed many lives.
Well, Kvalifar now has a bit of gold to work with, got an infusion. Like I said, has probably going to... I mean, people often like to keep that healing flask if they have it off cooldown and then sell it once they've used it. So I imagine that'll be the case for Kvalifar. He might just look to refresh his infusion, might go for Journey Boots. Nearly hitting that Journey Boot threshold, so he's got a couple of options in tow. Tyra is now with the coat of plates, the Echo. I mean, is this gonna be eventually a double Echo? Because Tyra, you don't often see Echo come out on the CT beneath, but if this is an Echo followed by Hegman picking up an Echo, that's just more CC, and you've got that hyper carry of Baron to work with. So it makes a lot of sense. Mowgli looks for the engage.
Oh, that's a lot of damage onto Kvalifar there. But he is silenced up, and he is dead! Now it's Dynasty trying to run away. Mowgli has that fountain to try and keep Rikomeza alive. He was silenced, remember, but Riku is dead, and Mowgli will just hold on to the fountain. Now it's going to be a Kraken to be taken. SK going to march on over and take it down.
Oh, that was so close. Those first 2 hits into Kvalifar really chunked him. It's why the armor feels like a good investment for him. He's got 2,000 gold in the bank, sell that healing flask, maybe even pick up a bit of armor, and he would be in a better position. But SK still coming out on top. Kvalifar saying, you might be the new jumping, long-range burst weapon power carry, but I'm the OG. I still do it the best. Proving that right there.
Right, it was 400 on an auto attack, you can see there, but Kvalifar says I do 500. Pretty scary.
And it's splash
times.
damage, you know.
Yeah, it is, right. So, and when there's a scarf that also is fairly squishy, does a lot. SK now pushing into the base. In game 1, we saw them do this around this point, Scoundrel, and it was Dynasty's route back into the game. Maybe we see deja vu, or maybe it's a clean victory for SK and they will get their 3rd European win here in the autumn season. 17.5 minutes, they're pushing on in. Rikomeza being allowed to... What is... Pedal's behind them. Okay, PT Lamb, I see you there. Managing to get a flank play that hasn't worked out. Now it's going to be SK charging on into the base, and look at Kvalifar, very knowing the wall is where PTLM will come from. Trying to get away from this Petal. It's going to be a fearsome shade used. It's going to be first turret going down. Dragon's Breath being channeled. PTLM stuck in an ordained Iron Cannon on top, but they take down the Batiste. Kvalifar looking to 1v1 his nemesis. It's a trade back and forth, but an ace for Dynasty. And the Kraken will be finished, not before she takes down this last Vein Crystal turret.
What a flank coming out from PT Lamb. He dodges the fearsome shade, he dodges the silence, and gets a good chunk of damage down onto KV before actually fooling. Trades back and forth. PT Lamb actually taking a leaf out of KV's book and has gone for the coat of plates himself. But that flank might have kept Dynasty Gaming in the running here. Hegman and Tyra is a little bit overextended, get Githian walled, double Githian walled, I believe, into the wall of the Dynasty Gaming base. Needs to be a slower approach to the game, you feel, from SK Gaming. Don't rush it. Try and keep your eyes on PT Lam at all times. KV may be looking to work up towards a metal jacket here. Probably going to just take those back camps and pick it up on his rotation to the central shop.
Scoundrel, if Petal beats out Baron here, will you retract your statements about Petal just being a worse version of Baron?
No, but I do see your point.
I'm just wondering, you know. Need to know for my.
I don't retract my statements, Dalsy. It's just not how I work.
There you go. Scoundrel sticks by what he says. All right. Well, we'll have to find out because it is getting pretty close, these fights, and both teams have shown that they can take wins in team fights as well. But the Echo has been finished for Hegman now, so we got double Blast Tremor, double Fearsome Shade. If I was Ricky Meza, I would be building a Crucible out of that reflex block, I think. I think it's just necessary. Tyrez doesn't do as much CP damage as Batiste normally does when the Broken Myth is involved. It is a lot still, but it's not as much, and so I think you just need that double Crucible at this point.
I mean, look, if I have a Batiste Catherine composition with double Echo on both my Batiste and Catherine, as Mowgli looks really good.
Fight's freaking out, yeah. PT Lamb's trying to get in range of Kvalifar once more, but he's taking a lot of damage in the process. Rukamez is burning them all alive. Fearsome Shade comes out, it stops the Dragon's Breath. Kvalifar blowing up PT Lamb, and Rukamez is stunned up, in trouble as the Storm Guard Bubble doing so much work to this Scarf. A double kill comes through for Tyraz, and here comes the triple. Tyraz with the ace! And an exposed Vein Crystal means that SK have done it here. In week 3 of Split 1 of the autumn season, a flawless record in these weeks. Another first place for them, Scoundrel skyrockets them to 24 points on the leaderboard. And as we close out Split 1 here in Europe, SK making a strong argument that they should be Europeans' representation at the World Championship.
What a performance from these guys. Absolutely deserved. I don't need to retract my statements about Baron because he won, so it just makes me feel better. But I'll be honest, if I was playing in a composition with a Baron, with a Catherine and Batiste with double Echo, probably could have played Weapon Power Flicker and won the game. So I guess take it with a pinch of salt. Really well played from SK. They got a really good draft out, proved that Baron still has his place in the meta, and they are deserving winners of this week and obviously of the Split 2 with the amount of points that they've generated. Really good position to go to Worlds now, and we'll have to see how they do in the second half of our autumn Split, Darcy.
Looking forward to seeing them next week as well at the Mobile Masters as they go up against the World Competition. SK once more winning here in Europe, and that will close out Split 1 of Europe as well. So let's throw it back to Munchables and his gang to break it down.
Thank you very much, Dowsy and Scoundrel. That is going to bring Europe to a close with SK Gaming once again taking the title. It was a 2-1 scoreline against Dynasty in the end, and bringing out an old school composition to do it with as well. The Baron, Catherine Batiste, I nearly said Bathrin, but the Catherine Batiste coming on through. Great team fighting coming out from them.
Yeah, absolutely incredible. The damage coming out of this Baron was absolutely absurd. And of course, just the level of lockdown that the Catherine Batiste combo offers is insane.
Yeah, I mean, we said that if SK makes it through the early game, if they get to the team fighting stage, they're going to have so much power just because Baron scales so well. And when you combine it with a Baptiste Catherine, a composition that has so much influence and so much CC, it becomes impossible to fight against. This is in the early game, though. This is where Dynasty needed to win. They needed to get ahead early game so that they can try to snowball the game. And that's why they picked the Lance. They ended up getting the kill on Baron, but Baptiste actually cleaned up and got 3 kills. So the early game didn't go as expected for Dynasty, and actually SK were the team that came out ahead in it.
Yeah, honestly, you said that they needed to survive the early game. Tyrus is having none of that. He just wanted to win the early game hands down. Got a triple kill at level 2, which you see so rarely in games like this, and that set them up to such a fantastic head start.
Yeah, and they were able to just ride that wave of momentum all the way through. I mean, Dynasty did their best in this one, but it just wasn't anywhere close to enough because SK got that early lead and never looked back. They converted that early jungle edge that Tyrus got into pressure in the lane and allowed the Baron to then accelerate his path towards the late game items.
Now, I want to start to look a little bit later on into the game. 16 minutes in, to be specific, where we saw SK manage to win a fight that led to their first Kraken of the game.
This team fight was a little bit later on in the game, where Baron and SK's composition have already scaled, and you can see the damage coming off from them. The Petal, once she closes the distance and gets onto Baron, she can 1v1 him, especially since she didn't have any armor at the time. But it's so hard for Petal to do that, and for Dynasty's composition, because anytime they wanted to dive on Baron, he would just use his jump jets and kite back and gain the range advantage that he has back. So SK played their composition well, they scaled it, and then they played to their win conditions in the team fight.
Yeah, they certainly did, and in multiple team fights we saw them do very similar things, and we saw them snowball those victories. Dynasty didn't lose for the whole game, though. They definitely made a good showing for themselves, and we saw this weapon battle in some of the fights dishing out the damage itself. It's not like Baron was just straight up better. Let's take a look at the final team fight that happened during this game. This was obviously SK managing to win this one out because this was what sealed the deal.
Yeah, there were a couple times where Dynasty was able to get this nice combo with the Githian wall into a goop, but this time around the goop comes down immediately. Kvalifar jumps away and just starts throwing down that damage. A beautiful fearsome shade knocks away Rikumeza and Mowgli. It kind of leaves then PT Lamb isolated, and there's just really not much he could do. And Rikumeza just gets chased down here at the end, and Ace comes through with no turrets remaining. An easy finish for the side of SK because of their team fighting ability and their ability to take advantages and just push it.
And I mean, we talk about Petal and Baron being very similar in how they match up. The only advantage that Petal has over Baron is that she scales faster once she gets to level 8 in comparison to Baron, who needs to get to level 12. So had Dynasty used that advantage of when they get to level 8, apply it and try to get a lot of gold in return to getting a turret, for example, they would have been able to create a lead to play off of, but they weren't able to do that, and Baron was just like allowed to scale.
Once we got to the later stages of the game, Baron is so difficult to deal with, whatever the meta is at the time. Now, fresh off of his victory, we have Tyrus ready for an interview. So first of all, I want to say congratulations on your win, and also awesome job on the Baptiste pick, a start of game triple kill coming out. You must be over the moon with this one.
Thank you a lot. Feels relieving that we finally won this match, and it was an awesome start for me. That fight actually looked like we're gonna lose it, but it turned around pretty quickly. Pretty good for me. So it was a nice start with the match.
All right, well, I want to ask you about this matchup against Dynasty as a whole best of 3. What were you expecting coming into this one? Were you expecting them to be as strong as they've shown up today and this week in general? Because I know I wasn't expecting them to level up the way that they did this week.
As I said earlier, when it came to the G2 versus Dynasty matchup, I said that Dynasty can do it. They're a really good team. They're good players. Just their only weakness is that they're sometimes inconsistent. And when they're playing to their best, they can really make us struggle.
Now, Tyrus, I want to ask about your guys' practices. How do you guys approach each weekend? Do you prepare in advance to what you're going to be playing? Do you prepare towards the matchups you're going to be playing against, the teams that you could go up against in the semifinals and finals? Or do you just generally practice and try to get better and have more picks in general?
So with the recent roster change with Hagman, the focus was just on getting better in general. So we did not focus on facing certain enemies. We just focused on improving our synergy together. And yeah, this week, for example, KV needed to travel back home. So we had 1 day less practically. But yeah, we just improve and we just try to improve in general. Not anything specific.
Awesome. So looking for each individual improvement that you can find. Now, I want to ask you one more question. Next week is the Mobile Masters. How are you feeling going into that? Obviously, it's a best-of-1 format, but there's the opportunity to upset North American teams, and also Ace Gaming is going to be there. Are you guys confident going into Vegas?
Oh, I'm so happy. I'm so looking forward to Vegas. I'm really looking forward to facing all these teams, especially, I mean, if it's possible, Ace Gaming would be awesome to face. Just learn from them because they're a really strong contender in the EA region. And I just think it would be awesome. Let's see what we can do there.
All right, very excited to see how you guys do that as well. Congratulations on your 3rd week in a row at the top of the table. Congratulations on your victory right there. And thank you for joining us on this stream. So, kind of final thoughts on this matchup. The MVP for this one, I personally feel like has to be Hegman. His shot calling coming into this team has been superb, and that's exactly what we've been seeing across the